In 2007, I was fired from a job because of an incident that I had with a then coworker. I had been at this job for 6 years. And within those 6 years, myself and this coworker of mine had developed some tension between each other. Well, as time went by, that tension between us would slowly begin to escalate until that specific day. I was out on the floor in the warehouse, and all of a sudden, this coworker of mine, he walked by, and in which I felt he intentionally bumped into me as he was walking into the manager's office. And because I felt as though he intentionally bumped into me, I became so upset. I became so irate. I began to shout, "I'ma kill that motherfucker. I'ma kill you, motherfucker." I was hitting on walls. I was hitting on the table. I was acting out of character. And because of my actions, I was later called into the manager's office and informed that I would be suspended for 3 days. And on the third day of my 3-day suspension, I would receive a phone call to let me know if I would be coming back or if they were going to choose to let me go. So within those 3 days, I was sitting on the edge of my seat, so to speak. And on the third day, I received a phone call from my manager, and he informed me that they decided to let me go because of my actions. Long story short, I went and filed for unemployment. I got it, and this situation was something that I would later reflect back on. Hindsight is 2020. And after cooler heads prevailed, I saw where I could have handled things differently, you know? And that way I would have, because if I had handled things differently, I would have still had my job. But because I didn't, that wasn't the case. And so, this incident with my former coworker was the catalyst that brought about a lot of change with myself, because I made a vow to myself after that I would never allow myself to get that angry ever again, because it brought about so much disappointment within me of how I allowed someone to have so much control over me that it brought me to the point of being full of rage. I made a vow to myself that I would never allow myself to experience this again. So I went to the Lord. I asked him for his guidance. And I started to work on myself by reading books, by absorbing the Word of God, by going to church, by doing anything that I felt would help me to become a better version of myself, to the point to where I would have more self-control, more self-discipline. And so, like I said, this incident happened in 2007. It's 2025 now, so this was nearly 20 years ago. And within this time, I have done so much work on myself. God has definitely directed my steps and helped me to see what direction I should go in as far as developing myself to become the best version of myself, and how to go about developing self-discipline, self-control, self-awareness, to where it would be nearly impossible for me to react in the way that got me fired from my then employer. Now, this incident has helped me to see how destructive anger can be. Anger can really be a destructive emotion. I'm not going to say it's useless, because it has helped me. My anger from that I had at my then employer has taught me a lot about myself, and it has been a great inspiration for me to develop myself into becoming a better version of myself. So I'm not going to say that anger is a useless emotion. It's an emotion that you can learn a great deal about yourself and grow from, because I most certainly have. And it's for so many people, they allow themselves to stay stuck in this tunnel of rage, of always being angry. And I now see that anger is really an immature emotion. For men, the reason why a lot of us go to anger is because for a lot of men, we don't like to feel weak. And if you're angry, then you don't feel weak. You feel heard, you feel like you have some authority. You feel like you have some intimidation. And so that's why a lot of men go to anger, because they don't want to feel weak. But along with that anger comes depression and unhappiness and disappointment. And I didn't want to live with that, continue to go in a cycle of disappointment, of depression, of the negative feelings that anger can bring. I didn't want to stay trapped in that cycle, that negative and destructive cycle, like so many men do. And so therefore, I felt like it was very necessary for me to work on myself, for me to practice self-control and self-discipline, so that I would never experience a situation like this again. Now, I think about how if there would be any type of situation to where I would probably get very angry. And of course, that situation would be if someone were to attack a loved one. Yeah. Oh yeah. I would most certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, open up a can of whoop ass on whoever. Don't touch me and mine. But with that said, I would like to think that there would be a part of me, out of my years of working on myself, practicing self-discipline. That would be a part of me that would be able to grab myself out of anger in a situation like if I were to see someone attacking a loved one. I would most certainly attack that individual, but at the same time, I would hope and trust that there would be a part of myself within me that would grab myself out of anger, and I would be able to control myself from that at that point, from there on out. Say, okay, Key, pull back. You've done enough. Stop. I wouldn't want the rage to be so engulfed in rage to the point to where I would continue to beat on an individual, and I would end up in prison. Certainly wouldn't want that, because if you think about it, in prison there's so many individuals who are now in prison and who have to spend the rest of their lives in prison, and they have to live with the biggest regret that they have ever made in their life, by spending the rest of their lives in prison. No. Anger is definitely an ineffective emotion. Not useless, just ineffective. And it's something that I made the decision that I would work on, that I would develop myself to becoming a better version of myself, because I would never want to experience anger at that level ever again. Now, it should be an incentive for many people everybody knows that they have an issue with anger. They know themselves. Everyone knows. Everyone has enough self-awareness to the point to where they know whether or not they have an anger issue. I wouldn't say I had an anger issue. I've always been a very easygoing guy, full of peace. But hey, I'm human. I can be triggered just like anyone else. And that's what happened back then. But even now, even at the best version of myself, the present best version of myself, I can be triggered because I'm human. So I'm not saying I'm invincible to being triggered or anything, but I do have more self-control. I do have more self-discipline. I do have more insight on how to go about handling situations that would get me full of rage, in other words, But anger is a very ineffective and destructive emotion. And if you know you have an anger issue, if you don't want to continue to be in this cycle, this destructive cycle of anger and disappointment, then it's a must that you work on yourself. It's a must that you practice anger, take some anger management classes or courses or something. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't have an anger issue, like me, you owe it to yourself to focus on a weakness that you could become better at, Anyone in their right mind should not want to be so easily triggered by external forces, by people, by events, even such as, being stuck in traffic. A lot of people get so irate from being stuck in traffic, or while they're out there driving on the road. People get so full of rage during those moments, yelling back and forth at other drivers, and the drivers can't even hear them. But yeah, I mean, that's and when you get so angry, it's like it's anger is so emotionally draining. It can be so emotionally draining. It is so emotionally draining. And when I am emotionally drained, that is a feeling that I don't like. So I owe it to myself to work on myself to the point to where I will minimize and hopefully prevent myself from ever being emotionally drained due to anger, or being emotionally drained in any form of fashion. You know what I'm saying? It's not a good feeling. For me, most certainly it is not a good feeling. So it's like anger, man. If you're watching this video and if you suffer from anger issues, and if you don't, like I said, you don't have an anger issue, but it is an incentive for you to develop yourself into becoming so more conscious about who you are as an individual. Practice self-awareness, self-discipline, self-control, and yeah, focus on that area, because that area of your life, that area of your character, because it's no fun to allow so many people and things to have so much control over you, to the point to where it triggers you into being full of anger, being full of rage. That's not living. That's suffering. That's taking yourself through a lot of unnecessary suffering by allowing yourself to become so angry all the time. Anger is an ineffective and destructive emotion that I believe anyone should work on themselves and better themselves, so that they would minimize and hopefully prevent themselves from ever experiencing this negative emotion ever again. And the thing about it is, today, if I were to run into my former co-worker who I felt like intentionally got me fired, I wouldn't have any anger towards him. I wouldn't have any unforgiveness towards him. Why? It's because I forgave that man years ago. Now, why did I forgive him? I didn't forgive him for him. No. I didn't. I forgave him for me. Because truth of the matter is, when you hold on to anger, when you hold on to unforgiveness, that is putting yourself through a lot of unnecessary suffering. And when you do this, it's emotionally draining. And I love myself enough to not want to put myself through this. No. Life is too short for that. Life is too short to hold on to anger. Life is too short to hold on to unforgiveness. Life is too short to hold on to any type of negative emotion. Why? Because time is ticking. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. You don't want to waste your years holding on to these negative emotions. No. Because if you do, you're not living. You're just existing. You don't want to exist in life? No, this is life. You want to make the best of it. So let go of these negative emotions. Yeah. I owe it to myself. You owe it to yourself. We all owe it to ourselves to do better and be better so we can all make our worlds better. If you like what I have shared in this video, then by all means, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. God bless.